Om Bhadram Karne Vishrunuyama Devaha Bhadram Pashye Makshabhirya Jatraha Sthirairangai Stuštuvagum Sastanubihi Vyashema Devahitan Yadayu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, O gods, may we hear with our ears what is auspicious. O ye adorable ones, may we see with our eyes what is auspicious. May we sing praises to ye and enjoy with strong limbs and body the life allotted to us by the gods. Om, peace, peace, peace. A life is either all spiritual or not spiritual at all. No man can serve two masters. Your life is shaped by the end you live for. You are made in the image of what you desire. Thomas Merton. A life is either all spiritual or not spiritual at all. No man can serve two masters. Your life is shaped by the end you live for. The end. You are made in the image of what you desire. We all must desire God more than anything or anyone else. Value God above all else. Seek God before all else. Good morning, everyone. Glad to be here, back again in San Diego. Thank you, Swami. Our topic today is being religious versus being spiritual. Because, I don't know if you know, but there is a difference. What do you think the difference is? Start thinking. So, I'm not going to talk about the, oh no, I'm a spiritual, I'm not religious type of talk, or trend that goes on nowadays. I like to talk about the deep meaning, about what is to be leading a spiritual life as opposed to that of religious. However, when you lead a spiritual life, you have to lead a religious life as well. There are different ideas about religion out there. For example, for some people, religion means superstition, and for others, religion means empty rituals. And for some other people, religion means worn out customs and practices. For the young generations out there, to be religious is to be out of fashion. These days, to claim I'm spiritual sounds really cool. There is so much going on the internet, so much information. But there is a lot to process and understand. To be spiritual, my friends, is not so easy. It demands a lot from us. Sacrifice and deep commitment. There is this ancient way to be introduced to spiritual practices in India, but essentially it's actually in all spiritual religious organizations or movements. That is, the need to be guided and taught by a spiritual teacher, a spiritual director, a spiritual guide. To be introduced to a lineage of teachers in India is called initiation. And what is initiation? You might be asking. In short, is a commitment we make in our life in order to lead a spiritual life for the rest of our lives. So this is called Vedanta. We monks of this monastic organization, we share with you our passion and love for this wisdom that are nothing but revelations that we find in the ancient scriptures at the end of the Vedas. We call it Upanishads. There we find that the word religion or religious life is something connected, what we call a relationship. I was recently in India. I just came back a few weeks ago, and it was all about relationships. Me, every time I'm landing in a different state or place, going to visit all these temples and reconnect to reestablish my relationship with all those different forms of gods and goddesses. So in Vedanta, we talk about this relationship. It's called Sambandha. It also means connection, a link or a bond that we create, a connectivity that we have to establish. And we are all familiar with that. We never thought about it, but we all have relationships in our lives. Relationships are actually inevitable. From the moment we are born, and even before, in the womb itself, we create a relationship with our own mothers. We create relationship later on with our family members and the society. And from the womb to the grave, we have to deal with relationships. Not only relationships are inevitable, but they influence our life. Not only relationships are inevitable, but they influence our lives very deeply. Positively and negatively, our physical health is affected by relationships. Our mental conditions, emotions are affected by relationships. Our performance in life is affected by relationships. Our success and failures are affected by relationships. Our prosperity is affected by relationships. And such relationships are inevitable, and they play a very significant role in our lives. Relationships. We need to understand what kind of relationship we are establishing. A human being should know, should understand about this concept. Religion is a relationship. Religion influences our life. And in our life, we have no choice but to choose a relationship that aims to change us, to transform us. All our relations in life can be broadly classified in three types. Number one, the relationships we have from human to human. Number two, the relationship between us, embodied beings, and the world. And number three, the relationship that we have as humans with the concept, idea, principle of God. In the human-to-human relationship, our relationship with our other living beings, especially human beings, this relationship is primary in our lives. All the family relationships, friends, neighborhoods, neighbors, customers, clients that we establish daily. It begins with a connection with the mother in the womb. When the mother starts talking to the baby, creating a bond with it. This relationship between embodied beings is very important since it can shape our lives. There are, as we all know, relationships that can truly change our lives. That of what we call the guru, a spiritual preceptor, or someone we look up to. Human bonding, as a result, is very, very important. We can receive guidance. It's that way. And some of them are very significant. The second type of relationship is that of the embodied being of the human with what we call Jagat, the world. We are all born in this beautiful world, and at the time of birth, we are related, connected with the environment. What is the very first thing we want to do? Breathe. And for that, what is the relationship that we establish? A relationship with the air, the breath. If the baby doesn't breathe, what happens? The doctor or the nurse, grabs the baby from its feet upside down and slaps its butt softly to stimulate that breathing until we start hearing the baby crying. We all have this relationship with the world, with the universe, consisted of these 5 elements. We are connected to the Mother Earth, something that we cannot neglect. We are connected to water we drink and use in different ways. We are connected to the fire, to the sun. There is another form of fire. To the moon, the stars, and the different planets, for those who like astrology. This relationship also plays a very important role. What is happening these days? We just don't care anymore. We don't seem to care. The global warming is becoming a big issue, and it's affecting our planet. We cannot afford neglect. So we have to appreciate this relationship, which is essential for our lives. Nowadays, people are looking for other places to live outside this beautiful planet Earth. I don't get it, honestly. But looks like Mars is a perfect place. At last, we have the most important relationship, which is the relationship that we establish, what we call God, the Creator. We are introduced to the idea of God by the religion. We are born. Sometimes we choose it. Sometimes we don't get to choose it, especially when it is introduced to us. And we ask ourselves, somebody must be responsible for all this. Somebody must be in charge of this beautiful world. Somebody must be there to put harmony in all these laws that we experience in our lives. So the Creator created kind of relationship. We generally don't pay attention to this. We take it for granted. Well, we are here, we are living. Who cares? I have other problems. How can I be happy and get the most out of this life? So this relationship is ignored, but can be truly be ignored. This relationship, which is generally forgotten and ignored, is the most important relationship because it's long-lasting. It never changes. All other worldly relationships are unpredictable, cannot control them, and are unsustainable. They are all fragile. And even the strongest relationship is limited by time. Time can end any worldly relationship anytime. Because they are all subject to change. I gave a talk recently. I call it change and authenticity in a spiritual life. We all, sooner or later, have to start relating to something that doesn't change, from where we can regain strength. And practice what we call acceptance. This is the most stable relationship which alone can give lasting emotional security. And yet we ignore it. Have you ever thought this way? Now, all these relationships need to be preserved as well as nourished. They are all important. How do we engage in these relationships? How is these relationships formed? How they are, these relationship forms, preserved? In the example of the mother and the child, how is the bond between the baby and the mother created? Right from pregnancy, whatever the mother is doing, one part of her mind is constantly aware of one thing: her baby. Those who are mothers here can understand this. Whatever they are doing, there is one part of her mind, of their mind, that is always present, alert with her baby. Her baby is growing inside her. She knows it very well. At the thought level, the mother has the baby in the mind. At the thought level, the bonding starts taking place. What do you think this is? A constant thinking, constantly coming back to the same thought. Is dhyana, meditation. It's a form of meditation. Once the baby is born, not only at that thought level, the bonding takes place, but the mother begins to talk with the baby. And even though everybody knows that the baby doesn't know any language, this seems to happen. And they both understand each other. The mother develops her own baby language, and bonds with her baby. The word she uses, they are nothing but mantras. That help to connect, help establish that relationship with her baby. Every sound of the mother and the sound of the baby, that bond is established. It's called verbal activity and reinforces that bond. It's a communication, a link. There is also a physical bonding, the touch. Mother starts touching the baby. They make a connection, and the connection is further reinforced. Some mothers caress the baby, hug, kiss the baby all the time. What is happening is the invisible bonding relationship link takes place between this mother and baby. So, at the thought level, verbal, touch, this bond, this connection is preserved and nourished. This is the human being's method. Does it work? Yeah. It must be there for a healthy growth. Somehow we all learned and entertain a connection to preserve a bonding also in our daily life, with our relationship, with our friends, family members. Happy birthday, we say, and we hand a gift. Here, this is for you. There is meaning. We want to make sure that that relationship is solid. There is an action. There is a hug or a kiss. We celebrate Mother's Day and here Valentine's Day. We send gifts to all those who we love and care. All this is meant for appreciation and to preserve the bonding. Now, let us observe this form of bonding in religion. Any one of the religious practices we entertained will be to connect this human-to-human kind of bonding. In India, there is a festival, those who are from India, it's called Rakhi. And it's a joyous festivity celebrated by Hindus worldwide, actually, to honor the bond of love and responsibility between brothers and sisters. On this day, sisters tie a Rakhi, a bracelet, around their brothers' wrists, symbolizing their love, care, and protection for each other. Brothers, in return, often give gifts or tokens of appreciation to their sisters. This is an example from the religious point of view between human-to-human relationship. What about the relationship between the humans, embodied beings, and the world? Well, we find in India different festivals and worships. The worship of the sun on Sankranti Day, Sankranti is a harvest festival that celebrates the end of the harvest. It's also known as Pongal, kind of Thanksgiving for all of us. There are holy rivers where Kumbh Melas take place, which is a Hindu festival and pilgrimage that involves bathing in the sacred rivers, like the Ganges, for example. It's a festival, these are festivals that aim to create bonds with nature. Everything carries meanings. Everything really carries meaning. What about the festivals like Shivaratri? I happened to be in India when this took place, this specific festival. Oh my gosh. There was so much going on. Even our own brothers were dressing up and dancing, honoring Shiva. And we all enjoy the beautiful songs on that particular night. Durga Puja and many other rituals. These are activities where we engage our bodies, our minds, to connect with something higher, which is what we call God. Rituals and religion are nothing but a bonding means to create and to preserve a relationship for our well-being. Not only religious practices are important, but values are also essential. Ethical and moral values. All these are also meant to preserve that bond. Whenever we violate a spiritual value, we experience a rupture within us, in that bond. All the values proposed by religions like truthfulness, satyam, or ahimsa are meant to create patterns in our minds and preserve that bond between humans, among humans, between us and the world, nature, and between us and what we call the God. In Sanskrit, we call him Ishvara, the one who is responsible for all this. And all these values need to be involved also. We need to value the practice of these values. We see how religion and religious life is truly important for every one of us. The practices that we engage, all these yogas, the basis is what? Word. We touch as we pray, the rosary. We think, engage our minds, immediately the meaning flashes in our mind. It's all about relationships. And what is the most important relationship that we should pay attention to? Between us and that what we call God. The rituals themselves are not an end, but they are meant for keeping the bond, the relationship between us and Ishvara. Therefore, we have to pay attention to these religious practices. But we should not be carried away and miss the original purpose. Because sometimes, everything becomes mechanical. Talking out of my own experience, I lived in India for many years. I found very interesting that sometimes you observe, and people are very mechanical. Sometimes it happens here too. We have to go to church, we have to go to church. But we forget the meaning. We forget the essence. We take our bodies there, but our minds are somewhere else. We are not present. And slowly we relax. We miss the point. We really forget why we are there. Or we know, oh yeah, we have to do this, period. We have to go to church or visit a temple and make pranams and take something for offering. Hopefully you will get something back from the priest. Sometimes you take something, the priest gives you something. So it's called prasad. And in our minds, all we want is that sweet. We can take home and share with others. But our life could be a mess. Our values could be compromised. We can avoid this relationship between us and what we call God, the ultimate truth, but we cannot avoid protecting, taking care of these bonds that we have between humans to humans and humans with nature. We all need to work for these kind of relationships. In the best couples, marriage, we have to work, like nurturing a plant every day, right? What about the most important relationship? We seem to forget. What is being spiritual, really? In Vedanta, we talked about spiritual life at the end of the scriptures. Veda Anta, the end, where we find the Upanishads, where we find these revelations, the answer to the fundamental questions of life about who we are and why we are here. It is a lifestyle where we connect with the spirit. The spirit means that absolute reality, which is the support of all the relative things in the world. The absolute reality which transcends all the relations, which transcends all duality, the basis behind all the changes that we experience in our lives. Why do these scriptures talk about this absolute reality? This is the highest thought we can conceive with our human minds. It's absolute freedom. The highest. And if we want the highest, the means and the end should be the same. And that takes a huge responsibility from our end. Because we have to make the means true, real, authentic. We can be fake. We can pretend, In religious life, I'm only interested in maintaining the appropriate bonding. Sometimes for our own benefit, material benefits. But in a spiritual life, we choose to have the highest goal, the aim before us, and we have to be coherent. We have to behave. We have to be true. The highest goal is to find liberation. It's called moksha. Liberation from what, Swami? From our constant seeking. That need we have, an interrupted need, that we look for something that can fulfill us, that can make us happy forever. And we all seem to be frustrated because we can't find this in this world. It's never enough, you know. It's not outside, it's inside. And we have to establish a relationship with that reality within us. You can use religion for material prosperity. It can make you a religious person, but it will never make you a spiritual person. When it comes to spiritual life, religion is really not a matter of choice. You can never be a spiritual without being religious. If you want to lead a spiritual life, you have to lead a religious life. Sometimes when we are introduced to Vedanta, all these principles, this truth, we fall in love with it, right? It's like, oh, that sounds great, that I am divine. That I am the goal already. That I am God? That sounds great. How do you manifest that in your life? How do you express that in your daily life? For that, relationships are very important. You establish a relationship with a symbol and you behave, act accordingly. You establish a relationship with God and give meaning to everything you do as a means to connect to that essence in the form of rituals, religious practices. That's why it is said, to repeat the mantra is okay, it's good, but to repeat the mantra and the meaning will transform you. To pray with intention will change you. As I mentioned before, I gave a talk on change and how we perceive the inevitable change in our lives. I talk about the type of changes, the external changes, that we can help them. There is nothing we can do. Already happened. All of a sudden we have to, accommodate our lives without notice. We all experience that all the time. Sometimes these changes are so hard, they are so painful, that we have to relate to something higher than us in order to find peace, in order to find acceptance. And there are other changes, internal changes, the behaviors that we have to change, the bad habits that we all have. for that, we do have some control. We do have our willpower. I can change. I can change my attitude. I can be more disciplined. When I understand what needs to be done, I can say, I'm doing it. Not I will. I am doing it already. In order to find that strength, we also need to relate to something higher. We also need to establish a strong bond, a strong relationship with that we call God. So as you can see by now, everything is meaningful in our lives. Even that we call the abstract God that we don't seem to see, it's all around us. And we cannot deny that reality. In both cases, whether the changes come from the outside or from the need from the inside, we require to relate to a higher force that will allows us to find solace, strength, and freedom. Is it true? Whether we superimpose that in some human being, oh, he's God. Sometimes I hear that. It's true, we are all God. We are all incarnations of that divinity. To create bonds with people who we look up to is good, could be healthy. But in Vedanta, we have to establish a relationship with that God that is within us. Any guru, spiritual guide, teacher, preceptor should show us the way. And eventually, by these means, spiritual practices, we should discover that so-called guru in our hearts. When it comes to changes, we all need to resort to the only unchanging reality where we find solace and feel safe. Despite all the changes that come to our lives, we find assurance in the eternal truth that will never change. The eternal truth comes from teachings, scriptural knowledge, experience from great, great teachers. And everything I'm talking about is coming from them only. We can resort to religion, no doubt. But Vedanta, if you really want to be spiritual, demands a strong and deep commitment. Vedanta demands that you need to practice real spirituality. Need to practice self-inquiry. Who am I, after all? What is all this? Whether our approach is dualistic or non-dualistic, there is no other way, my friends, but we need to work with our limitations, our shortcomings, our selfishness. We have to change how we perceive this reality, but first, we have to change ourselves. We have to change how we perceive the world we have to change how we perceive God and religion. There is a need to be authentic, real, true to ourselves and to our values. We are free to choose the values that will help us grow spiritually. We have that power. We need to be genuine. I was just, as I told you, in India, and I was visiting Varanasi, Kashi, and there's a temple called Kedar Temple, dedicated to Shiva. Very, very old. And, as I was getting ready, I reached the steps, because you have to walk up the steps, very, steep. And there was no place to leave my, expensive sandals. And I was like, well, I should have brought something else, so just walked barefooted. But I left them there, by the steps. Immediately I thought, okay, I hope when I see you guys when I come back. Because, I don't mean to judge, or be critical, but you never know whether they'll be there once you come back. And I was getting ready to have the darshan or vision of God. Yes, I was going to have the vision of God, represented, symbolized by that Shiva Lingam, ancient piece of stone. So you walk into that temple and you work with your mind. Like, oh my God, I have to be ready for this vision. And you create an attitude, a predisposition for that. And as I was walking around the lingam, suddenly I feel something around my neck. A beautiful garland just landed perfectly. Somebody threw it, And I was like, wow, what a beautiful garland, sharp and yellow. And I was like, what is happening? First thing we asked, why me? Am I special? Am I more special than the fellow that is right behind me? Right? You start creating all these thoughts in your mind. At the same time, I was like, all right, this is something interesting. No? But I was enjoying it. I was like, all right. I never got a garland, so sounds good, Let me just enjoy this moment. Maybe it means something, and I should think about it maybe later, right? So I was having all that as I was having the vision, walking around the lingam. All of a sudden, I see a hand, the priest, extending his hands, kind of like, come on, give me money. It was him who actually picked me, maybe because I looked a little different, for money. And I was like, wow, all right, that spoiled the whole thing. All the magic all of a sudden was, right? But then you are confronted with what? With superstitions. What if I don't give money? Do I have money? Yes, I had so many bills in my pocket. But then, you get annoyed because he was like, you spoiled my moment, really. Why did you just leave me alone? Just enjoy my darshan with God here. But then the thought, of what if I don't give, something very bad will happen? Of course, I give some money just in case. So there is clearly a difference between religion and spirituality. But they are not opposite either. Spirituality is more about personal growth and fulfillment, self-discovery, while religion is about following certain rules. You better give some rupees to the priest because you have to. Hmm? And also what to talk about in religion, the concept of fear. But truly speaking, if you want to be spiritual, you cannot be afraid. In fact, a spiritual person deals with this getting rid of what we call fear. And then again, in religion, we entertain the idea that whatever we do is for the later, for the goodness. Punyam is called. If I do this, I will go to a heaven. Does it really make sense? Can we prove that? So we choose to believe. Not a problem if you can't prove it. It's my choice. But it's also your choice to be a little bit more rational. Many times I'm asked, Swami, what happens to us after death? I have no idea. I'm not dead yet. I'm still in this body. But the scriptures say, and some other great people say, that everything you accumulate in the form of experience and goodness, you take it with you. And you get to enjoy it somewhere else. And when you exhaust that bank account, you have to come back to figure this out. You have to come back to this platform and find out who you truly are. And stop wanting everything except that will make you free. What is that will make you free? Our idea of God. Vedanta is all about self-mastery. We have to understand, take charge, work with our own minds, observe, be the witness, work with ourselves. This is, Swami, this is so hard. Be religious, but be true. But don't call yourself spiritual yet. If you really want to call yourself spiritual, you have to take charge. You have to be true, transparent. The means at the end should be the same. If they are telling me that God is everywhere, it has to be within me and within you. And I have to practice that. Whatever I want for myself, I have to give it to you. And that's the end of it. So at best, we can lead a religious life. A spiritual person is someone who is free from fear. We can accommodate everybody, who has compassion, and who will not hurt another person. A spiritual person lives a balanced life that they live genuinely and authentically. They are true to themselves, and they are true to who they are. There cannot be a spirituality as long as there is no consideration for other feelings. Do you feel for others as you feel for yourself? That is the key question. If you do, know that there is growth, spiritual growth. For all of us who aim at being spiritual, there must be a change. and a change that we are willing to embrace. A religious person need not change. A religious person need not work with himself or herself. They just need to feel that they are religious. Being spiritual means you neither blame yourself nor others. You address your own problems. You take charge of your own problems. You commit to yourself and change your life. You get hold of God to gain strength and welcome that change, that transformation. Spiritual life is all about the transformation of our personalities and characters. Do you agree? That's why it's so hard, my friends. That's why it's so hard to be a true Vedantin. Because we have to be real. No, but I read the Vedanta Sara. Intellectual gymnastics. Scholarships won't do here. You need to make the decision once for all that I'm going to be one with God. And that needs to be translated, experienced, felt in your daily life. Vedanta doesn't talk about one God, doesn't say there is one God or there is no God. Vedanta says all that is around us is nothing but God. Hear it, process it, think about it, live that. Be real, transform your lives, be coherent, be true. No matter how many times you go around the Shiva Lingam, that won't change you, know. It's not about fantasies and magic. It's about the decisions you make. If God is everywhere, He has to be particularly and especially in all of us. We are all temples. These bodies are temples of God. And every time I see a temple of God, I should say namaste. You practice. Slowly, that clarity will come to you. Knowledge will come to you. But you have to practice. You have to be true. Ishavasyamidam sarvam yat kincha jagatyam jagat. All this is pervaded by God. This reflects the idea that the universe is one complete whole and is inseparable from what we call God. Such an understanding is like fresh air for the dying man. It's like oxygen for the thinking person. It gives us so much freedom. Oof. The duality is over. When you think this way, fear is gone. You cannot be afraid. You become fearless, bold, strong, big heart. I love with what Thomas Merton says, one of my favorite saints, life is this simple. We are living in a world that is absolutely transparent, and the divine is shining through it all the time. We are living in a world that is absolutely transparent. We think of it as if, oh, maybe I have to see some light, some green, blue light to have the experience of God. Not at all. We have to accept it. The world is absolutely transparent and the divine is shining through it all the time. This is not just a nice story or a fable. It is true, he says. We find the same thing in the teachings and experiences of Sri Ramakrishna, for example. This is of Jesus. Don't you see? God is all around us. Yet, we choose to believe in so many things. Superstitions. And we don't believe in this. How do you dare call yourself spiritual? For those who are lovers of Vedanta, we have to understand what is sat, what is real and true. Sat, satya, satyam. Each of these words indicate that which is the unchanging. Nitya, pure consciousness. Chit, and the witness. Sakshi, the perceiver. After all, for things to change in the phenomena, there must be an unchanging witness, and that is you yourself. Did you know that? Think about it. Accept it. That unchanging reality is always present, even when you are following your thoughts, and you become your thoughts. It's you. Being spiritual demands true commitment. Demands to be authentic, to be true. Demands us to be coherent and practice the true meaning of God. A life is either all spiritual or not spiritual at all. No man can serve two masters. Is it clear now? Your life is shaped by the end you live for. Is it clear now? You are made in the image of what you desire, and you better desire the highest. We must desire God more than anything else. Seek God before anything else, and find that God is expressing himself through us as us. Thank you. Oh, questions?
Does anybody would like to ask any questions?
It's an online question.
Okay, go ahead, ask them.
Okay, Dave asked, for Buddhists who don't believe in God, then how can they have a spiritual life?
Well, the experience is the same. They should know better for Buddhists. They don't believe in the witness, but they believe in nothingness. In Vedanta, we call that nothingness, completeness, fullness. It's exactly the same. Mhm. Purnatvam, Purna, fullness. That's our goal. You call it nothingness or fullness. It's just a matter of lingo. Mhm.
Here's a related question to this. It is said that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. So isn't everything we do part of our spiritual life?
When there is awareness of that truth, it is indeed. And when that happens, then we come true. You cannot do anything not religious, so to say. You cannot compromise values if you experience your life as being spiritual. You see? To believe that our life is truly spiritual, this human experience, is to acknowledge the truth. And we have to follow these values to create and to preserve and to nurture that bond that we by choice decide to practice. So eventually, our life experience sometimes is hard. Life is hard, so much suffering. And there are no answers to all these questions. That life doesn't make any sense. We are killing each other. We are fighting for power, for money, for fame. What is all this? We fall into the snares. We fall into this hypnotism. We separate ourselves. We harm each other. That is not the truth. The moment we start connecting, tuning with the reality, in our life, we start experiencing what we call magic. All of a sudden, yes, it's true. There is good and bad, but that is the nature of the world. That is life itself. We can't help it. Where there is one, there is the other. In order to appreciate the goodness, you have to experience the opposite. So it's fun. Sometimes it's hard, but it's beautiful. Perfection. But in order to get out of this maze, we can't be inclined to either. We have to stay put. It's neither yes nor no. In our life, we go like, oh, yes, yes, please, 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 please. No, 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 please, 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 please. Be open. Work hard with the right attitude. Live with values, with the thought of God, in the reality of God, and accept whatever comes. And keep giving, because it's all about giving. It's all about sacrifice.
Like religion, does spirituality fall in the domain of time, space, and causality?
That's a spiritual. No, it goes beyond that. Once you truly fall into the principle of spirituality, you are no longer bound in your mind. We are, but eventually that grows and takes us beyond that. We accept it. We don't fight with that anymore. We accept the passing of time as being something absolutely natural. We embrace the changes. Yet we know the truth. We live here as great actors, Oscar awarded. We know we are just acting. we know it's not the truth. Yet, it's inevitable. We have to live. But this life is for us, with a smile on our faces, which we enjoy. We should enjoy, yet not be enjoyed by life. For that, it demands mastery. It demands commitment. It demands that you remember. Thank you.